well, this is just a Rubik's Cube of layers. I just got trapped by my glasses and mask. Check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Cool, awesome, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Some of us still haven't found what we're looking for. I was thinking about this while we were singing, which is why I probably played different tempos during the song. Some of us have been doing this. I've been doing this for 20 years. Some of us, John, your living room, 15 years ago? A long, like kids ago, families ago, like degrees ago. Some of us have been around a version of this at some point or another and left that version of this and found their way back. And there's like 4 or 5 people in the room who've experienced that. There's people, I'm sure, online tonight, especially as the COVID numbers rise, people who've chosen to tune in online, who were here like a lifetime ago and have stayed connected through the online community. And so we still haven't found what we're looking for, and we found something. We have found something. There's something good here. And it's also bad, it's also painful, it's also human, it's real, but there's something good. Oh, I just got a reminder to turn our phones off. This is my assistant. The internet. So all that to say, if you're here, hopefully it's because you also still haven't found what you're looking for, and not even this, that this is the pursuit of whatever that is. So welcome to Collective. This is our 5 p.m. liturgy. I'm Ben. I'm the pastor of the church. I'll be your host for the service tonight, locally in beautiful, hot downtown DeLand, and globally at wearecollectivechurch.com. You can stay connected, subscribe. We're gathering safely in person, which means, and I want to say thank you to Heather for this. Heather, thank you. Heather gave me this mask, which means that we are back to a higher level of caution. We've got responsible, self-managed, common sense distancing, kind of manage your exposure cluster, you know the people that you've been around, and we're going to be like this for the foreseeable future. We highly recommend that you wear a mask indoors, even if you're vaccinated. I've been kind of collecting stories all day about this. I've also been getting texts, so it's not just stories like you're looking through Facebook and finding these things, because I had to get rid of Facebook, because it just, a couple things the last few days made me really sick. So I got rid of that, between, just all the stuff. But these are people who are texting me. These are people who I know personally, who are like in the ICU now, day 12, in the local hospital, like their lungs are never gonna come back. These are people who are like clusters of people in downtown DeLand who are all vaccinated, who are all getting COVID. I heard something this morning that the amount of COVID present in the nostril of someone who's vaccinated and unvaccinated, the Delta variant, the amount of COVID is exactly the same, regardless of whether or not you're vaccinated. So you're transmitting it just the same. So all that, this is not a soapbox for this, but to say, be wise. Right? You're not going to hear anybody coming down on you. What we're asking you to do is be wise. So if you can, wear a mask inside. That'll help everybody. Obviously, if those of us up here can kind of keep our distance and not wear masks so that you can understand better at home, if you do better reading lips, that kind of thing. But please wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. If you have more questions on that, there was a post on Facebook just yesterday that had more details on that based on the policy advisement of the Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church, so that's sort of our call-up organization. Theirs is based on the CDC, you may have heard of it. So we're trying to follow best practices. The idea is that people stay safe, that we can keep doing this, because if you can't see this online, Brandon can show you the room, I'm sure, but there's people here, and that's awesome. And it would be really nice. Like if all I can get is Jay's eyeballs, that's fine. I'd like to get Jay's eyeballs in the room, like 15 feet apart. So let's be safe if we can. The cases are rising at an alarming rate locally. There's lots of kids that are getting it, even vaccinated kids getting it. So we've got masks here that are available if we need them. I think, Dan, you've got some at the bar, right? So apparently we're going to take this one seriously, again, as things rise. Let's just be safe. And again, we don't want to be afraid. We don't want to be afraid. We want to be wise, and we want to take precautions. So we're live streaming also. We want to respect privacy, so if you're here and you don't want to be on video, you can hang out over in that section over there. In person and online, live now or later on, whenever, wherever. Your presence makes us who we are. Welcome. Liturgy, we said this is our 5 p.m. liturgy. Liturgy means the work of the people. That's not like us who are professionals up here doing the work and you guys are spectators and you watch. This is all of us working out spiritual community together, but here to help us do that work are tonight's liturgists. Kenny's our online host, so if you're online, especially if you had the option and you chose to stay online because of the COVID stuff going on, I did the same thing. I really wanted to come to the comedy show on Friday night, but I got some of those texts and those calls in the hours leading up to it, just people really close to me that these things were starting to explode. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play it safe. Let us know. Jump online, especially if you stayed home because you want to just play it safe. Totally cool. That's why we have the online liturgy available. But let Kenny know that you're on. You're going to have a great opportunity to participate tonight and help us shape some exciting questions for our future. We're glad you're here. We've got Heather, our summer resident, our summer intern on the couch, and we've got John Scott, lifelong collective folk. Thank you guys both for being here. Glad you all are here. We have our artist in residence, Fred Wilson. Fred, how goes it?
It goes well.
It does go well. Yeah, that's what they say, the mystics and the gurus. It is well. So Freddie's here tonight, but Fred, you're going to be gone next week, right?
That's true.
Do you have, what is it, a gig? Wait, is this none of my business also? You can say, get out of here.
I am going to meet my newest little nephew.
Precious. I'm so glad you shared that. That's really nice. You're such an uncle.
I am, yeah.
Congratulations.
Two times over.
2 times the uncle, 2 times over. Yes, congratulations.
Little baby Lincoln.
Baby Lincoln?
Lincoln.
Little baby Lincoln, fantastic. So Freddie's going to be gone. Mary, our own Mary Los, is going to be sitting in leading music next week, which means there won't be a person running slides next week because Mary's going to be up here helping me doing the music and stuff. So is there anyone in the room? Was that your hand going up? Helena's going to go, yep. Helena's going to go back right now and shadow Mary, and then you can show up next week and run slides? You're fantastic. You're in. You're hired. So Helena's going to do it. Go shadow Mary, and you can learn all the ins and outs of that. That went way easier than I expected it to go. So a hand for Helena, and thanks to Mary for leading music next week. We have, the thought that went through my head is we have COVID coffee at the bar. That's not what we have at the bar. We have coffee at the bar, and in the heightened COVID environment, Dan is happy to serve it for you. He can also turn it. You can serve it for yourself. However you're comfortable, we do have coffee. We wanted to continue to make that available, just, again, safely with masks and whatnot. If you want to be a barista, I mean, just look at Dan. Look how fun it is. He's having the time of his life. Yeah, so if you want to do that, see Heather. Usually Marianne is here to do that. The point is we all are collective church. We're all doing this work of spiritual community together. John, why don't you remind us what that means to us with the community statement?
Okay. Hi. We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community. And we've traveled different paths. So, we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So, we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Thanks, John.
Different paths, beautiful people with messy pasts, so have no fear, no judgment here. Whether you believe in Jesus, Don't believe in anything, something you can teach us. You belong. No right, no wrong. Lean into grace. Help us make a place with an open table. No one's turned away. We'll love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals. You are held in light. Good news is on your side. Oh, oh, life is full of mystery, and solidarity helps us to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Leaning into grace. Help us make a place with an open table where no one's turned away. We'll love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals. You are held in light. Good news is on your side. Oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, that bang.
We are collective. What happened? We are collective.
Is that me or? Did that just happen? Was that?
Yeah. It was in your head.
I thought I was having a stroke. I'm sorry.
Jay thought I was having a stroke. Good. If you're following along live online, I'm not having a stroke. Whew, we Collective Church. We, us in the room. We online. Kenny, who is with us online tonight?
Well, we've got Karen and Lewis Long watching from home.
Awesome. Hey, Karen and Lewis. Good to see you guys.
And John Schulteis says hey.
Awesome, John.
We have more eyes on the chat than we have actually chatting, but
Very
that's
cool.
cool.
Okay. Well, if you're on and you want to engage later on in the service, let Kenny know you're here. We'll have some questions for you, I assure you. So we've said it, we've sung it, we've connected to the folks who are online. How do we practice the community statement this week, Kenny?
Well, practicing with Collective begins with our weekly email. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the email and check the box for the rundown. Then you can pick which groups you want to see within the rundown, whether it's something every week like Collective Yoga or something once a month like Art and Soul. Remember though, you have to make sure to check the rundown, otherwise you won't be getting any of this exciting info in your inbox. So if you check the boxes for all the cool stuff, but don't check the rundown, you won't get anything.
So, for example, and I don't know what I watched some great stand-up comedy this weekend about how often we use the phrase cat for like random stuff, but I guess I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. I don't know why they put the cat in the bag in the first place. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. We found out this week at our weekly meeting for our email communication kind of stuff that there are 67 people who have signed up through the website for Collective, but not signed up for anything else. So there's a bunch of people out there who are like, yeah! And there's nothing happening beyond that. So if you want to actually find out what's going on in the community, if you want to be engaged, if you want to get specifically only the communication you want, check the boxes, check the rundown. You can kind of set up that custom dashboard so you know how to get connected.
Yeah, so like you said, you can customize your dashboard for both communication and practice. So you need to make sure to do that.
Just a reminder, Kenny, and a reminder for people in the room and online, just because you check to get information doesn't mean you're committing to doing anything with that. So if you click childcare, you'll get information sent to you about the childcare process, but you're not in any way saying, I want to come and do childcare at Collective.
Good point.
So
Yes.
information only.
You're agreeing to receive information. You're not committing to any form of service. If you do commit to some form of service, we'll let you know right after you've signed up for it. As soon as, just after that, then we'll let you know. Go ahead.
So, Pints and Parables is happening this week. Ben and Heather are going to catch us up on this one. Thanks, you two.
So I can't remember if we sent an email out about this. Years ago, we had this really cool interactive relationship with Peter Rollins, who's a philosopher and theologian from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and then was living in LA. And he did some work at the intersection of philosophy and theology and practice and community. And so he was really interested in what we were doing as a congregation as an expression of his sort of line of thought, philosophy and theology. So we started to bring him to do kind of weekend seminars and to do classes and courses with us. And one of the things we did years ago was create an event called Pints and Parables, where Peter just came and told stories. And he's such a great, winsome storyteller. He's got this great Belfast Northern Irish accent. So he would tell like a 3 or 4 minute story and make like a 1 minute observation of the story and completely undo the religion many of us had grown up with just like a really disarming story. And he sort of taught us to understand the power of parables as disruptive rather than resolving. They're not trying to give us answers, they're trying to sort of explode our foundations and get us to ask questions in ways that we never have. And so we had this event called Pints and Parables where we partnered with Persimmon Hollow, and Peter came and told stories for 2 hours and reflected on these great parables. And then we decided to continue doing that. So for a long time, we did it every week for years and years, and then for a while, we did it every other week, and we changed locations, and then for a while, I don't remember what it was, and then there was a pandemic. Anyway, things have changed. So it's kind of been on ice for a while, and sort of the culmination of Heather's summer residency and our earnest desire. Don't you love that I'm the pastor of the church and I'm up here like, our earnest desire with my fingers crossed?
Right. Well, it is a cross.
Magical thinking. Yes, yeah, it is crossed. Our earnest desire was that this would be an expression of like things are getting safe and that it is going to be okay for us to be like out in public together. And we still think this is the case, especially this week, even with kind of the surge in COVID. We're going to be outside, downstairs at the table. Heather, why don't you catch them up more on kind of what it's going to look like this week?
Yeah, so we're going to be downstairs in the open area downstairs at the table. For anybody that doesn't know where that is, you can come and see me or email me. My
If
cards
these walls
are on.
weren't here, it would be like 20 feet that way.
Right. So it's an opportunity to meet. Unfortunately, we don't have a cool, charismatic person from Northern Ireland to facilitate.
Oh, get out of town, Heather. That sounds a lot like you.
So you have to put up with a
You can't
cool.
write this stuff.
You have to put up with a cool, charismatic person from Scotland instead.
But you don't even do anything crazy like skydive, do you?
Not since yesterday.
So yeah, come to the Pints and Parables.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll have some engaging discussion, and let's take all this stuff that's written down, not just in the Bible, but across the arts, that's written down about faith. Let's look at that instead of clicking a like on Facebook when you see a meme with some cool message on it. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. Let's pull it apart. Let's see what we really think, and at the same time have some delicious food and a pint of beer.
That's right. I mean, some of this is like, it's not the old school bait and switch. I think it's a more direct admission that like pews and parables weren't working. Maybe pints and parables will work better because it's disarming, because that arrangement is inviting to people. Point B of the announcement. If Pints and Parables is just all of us sitting around drinking and talking about what we think, we can just do that later again on Sunday night. The point is to engage people who don't want to go to church, who have no interest in spirituality, but really the hope is that they trust you. That if you're credible in their sphere of influence and you find something of value here, maybe you could bring them to the table in a conversation where they could find something of value there as well, without the bait and switch. Don't tell them that if they come to Pints and Parables, then they have to come to Collective. This, I mean, it's weird, but this is the church now. So we're not trying to like recruit and bait and switch them into here. Bring them to Pints and Parables, and I promise they'll get a ton of formation. They'll get a ton of theological reflection. They'll build community in ways that you can't in a church that you can't over a pint. So don't take our word for it. Please, seriously, come. We can talk till we're blue in the face about how great it is. The only way to hear about and to experience it is to come. So,
Thank you, Ben.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you both. I'm looking forward to being there on Wednesday. I hope to see most of you there. If you're looking for a way to support Collective, one way is by donating snacks for both Collective Kids and Collective Cares. So whether it's a Sunday night with the kids in the back or a Thursday evening with the Cares crew, we're doing some hungry work here. Your donations will be very appreciated. Remember, the point is the practice. And showing up, giving, and serving is also the practice. From the rundown to weekly practice to giving, make your plan now to do what you might not want to do later on this week. Of course, if you need any help, I'm more than happy to help you right after the service over here or at the bar. And since we've talked a lot about practicing this week, let's actually practice together now.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that first. I want us to connect with. So if you've been with us at all in the last several months since we opened again at Easter, we've been taking a word at a time, a word per month, and just seeing what happens to us as people and as a community when we spend time with a word. When you use that word as a mirror to kind of look at yourself, when you use it as a lens through which to look at the world, when you give it some more attention on the feelings wheel. What's my relationship with wonder, with asking for help, those kinds of things. Tonight, the word is going to shift to longing for the month of August. And sure, there's like the dog days of summer kind of deal, like how long is it going to be August in Florida, oh Lord. How long that longing. And so I want us to connect with the feeling of longing before we go into silence, in our solitude, in our practice of sacred waiting, because that feeling of longing is connected to waiting and a particular kind of waiting, the kind of waiting where you don't know. So hear the words of the psalmist. This is Psalm 13, Heather.
How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long will my enemy be exalted over me? But I have trusted in your mercy. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing out to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemy say, I have prevailed against him. Lest those who trouble me rejoice when I am moved.
We're going to sound the singing bowl in a moment. And we'll ask you to
sit silently with us for a few minutes. We anticipate that our minds will wander. But as we sit and try to center ourselves, quiet our minds, to share not only physical space, but to share the presence of silence, our minds will wander. The invitation in the next few minutes is to come back to your breath. If you can't think of anything else or anyone else, come back to your breath as the ground of what sustains you. If that's it in this moment, that's enough. Come back to your breath without judgment, just notice. Notice those thoughts, notice those fears. Notice the excitement, notice the dread. Don't judge it. Just step back and notice it. Let it come, let it go. If you'd like, there will be some drone footage. You can use that as best serves your sense of connection. May these moments of silence that we share allow you to contemplate what you want the ceremony to accomplish for you this evening. Humility, spiritual rebirth, strength for what lies ahead. Relax. It's all right. Wow. I think some people wonder, like, why would I come to church every week? If you were here last week, the silence was mostly populated by the chaos of my children, the screaming of children, just like like after a baseball game and you get one of everything at the soda fountain, the suicide of music in downtown DeLand that parks at this intersection during a 5 p.m. church service. Like, we couldn't get silence last week, but sometimes it happens. Like, just now, it was just beautiful emptiness. And I know that sounds crazy, like, turn your TV off and it'll get quiet. It's not the same. Like, being together and experiencing that together is really powerful. Thank you guys for being a part of that. And it doesn't happen every week. So maybe you're not into the sermon or their music or the coffee, but on the chance that you get 3 minutes of that kind of quiet with people, worth it for me, anyway. John, bring us back around to that text and give us this commentary, would you?
How long, O Lord, when injustice prevails and the poor are ground into despair. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Oscar Grant. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Emmett Till. These are names we know, and these are the words of Psalm 13. After the death of yet another black man, they are my words as well. The psalmist is angry, questioning why God has not acted.
Thanks, John. So that's Mario Powell, obviously a powerful figure in the racial justice movement, interpreting, and I think he's also a bishop in maybe the AME church, but interpreting that psalm and holding it over the reality of the world in which we find ourselves. I want to talk about that, but first, for those of you who are here tonight, live in the room, and for those of you who are tuned in live also, only live right now. This won't work later on when you listen or watch it later, but only right now. The password for this evening, you don't write it down, Fred. The password for this evening is Snapper. What I want to talk about is that people are looking for, what I want to say, and this is what we're going to say over the course of the next month, and what I need is to provide enough leadership for you all to help me say it. What we're trying to say is that people are looking for a safe place where they can be real and ask those kinds of questions. How long, O Lord? How long, O Lord? When we started Collective, we started with 6 weeks on the book of Lamentations. If you're not familiar, that's because it's not included usually in the lectionary, because it's kind of depressing. But we figured if people can deal with the kind of congregation that can deal that honestly with God, with the absence of God, with our problems with God, with our disbelief in God, then those are the kind of people that we want to be on this journey with. Deep questions. How long, O Lord? And those questions, longing questions, are loaded with unknowing. And usually it's not one question. How long can I last? And usually it feels like not much longer. How long will this go on? How long will it feel, regardless of what you believe about God or spirits or whatever, how long will I feel alone? Maybe that's not alone from being with God, but alone from being with people. How long? And yet, if you're to go to a typical church website, like where do you take these questions? Where do you take this longing? And we're in the process. Kenny and I and Heather came to this meeting this week. We work with a great local company and really a great local partner who helps us to kind of shape how we translate this message to people who might be looking for this kind of congregation, because if you've been around recently, that's what we're trying to do. We're in sort of a sustainability campaign, which means we're trying to survive. So we need to let people know that we've got a good thing going here. But if you look at what's going on, if you try to bring a question like, how long, O Lord? A question like, how much longer can I last? How much longer can I make it? You try to bring that to a church website. And it's like, what are the services like? Wink. What should I wear? Right? What's the fashion sensibility of the congregation? Is the coffee even fair trade? What do you believe? Right? What's your statement of belief? When really behind these questions, right, they're sitting down to Google, they're trying to find a community. And the truth is, most of the time, if they're looking, it's because things are not well. Things are crumbling. A lot of times we open up Google and we're like, I'm an origami bird's nest of existential dread, unresolved wounds. I'm phobic of death and loss and time and loneliness. So what do you believe about the Bible? Right? These questions are not helpful for people who are looking for what we're trying to do and to help with. We have to get from this deep inside longing to speaking to people something that's clear, that's simple, and it's clear enough that they can join us and we can help them. That's the plan. We want people to come with us and for us to be able to help each other. So how do we translate this longing? How does this show up in the questions that are being asked? So part of the reason we're phrasing it like this is that we're in the process over the next probably 3 weeks of putting together a list of frequently asked questions and responses to these questions. How many of you that sort of makes your skin crawl a little bit, or it feels like maybe you shouldn't be doing that because this is church and that feels a little weird? Cool, okay, so we're all down with it. So we're gonna do that. The only problem is this, so we're all on board with it. The only problem is this. I can't remember who I was telling this story to. When we started this, what was it, 2008, I think, John? Yeah, we were meeting in John's living room in 2008. And there were probably like 10 or 12 of us, and there was like some adults. I mean, John and I, like, we were kids. We didn't have any kids, but there were some adults. Like, my eye doctor was willing to start this church with us, and he comes to a meeting, probably in John's living room, and he's like, hey, and this is a guy who had been lifelong at First Baptist Church of DeLand. I had been on staff at First Baptist Church of DeLand, so if you get the picture, he was like, cool, we want to go do this new thing. So he comes to a meeting, and he's like, wait a minute, though. I'm seeing people in my chair all day, every day, and like I'm trying to talk about this cool church because I want them to come check it out, and they keep asking me what is it? Like, tell me about it. Describe it. Tell me what I'm getting into. And this is like a professional guy, like pretty well on in his career as an eye doctor, and he's like, I don't have any idea what to tell him. He's like, I don't know how to put into words what it is that we're doing here. But it's like, you know it if you see it. If you come and experience it, you'll kind of get what we're after. Or maybe it's a lot, like I was talking with Jay this week, it's a lot maybe like recovery work, where it's like you share your story, you share your experience, strength, and hope, and maybe that speaks to somebody else about how they connect. So we're going to come up with these frequently asked questions. And part of what I realized is we may not be, at this point in the game, because we started this, in different phases, but this version of it started in 2013, so we're a good bit into this now. The questions that gave rise to this community, and maybe even the questions that we're still asking, these might not be the questions that people are asking who are sitting down to Google. And so part of what we need to do is we need to come to terms with the questions we're asking, and we need some help from outside expertise telling us these are the questions people who are looking for what you got are asking, and then we've got to connect those. We've got to put those things together. And so just to give a quick perspective on what's happening, why do we need to do this? So when we started Collective, a lot of it was honestly adolescent. It was very punk rock. It was like whatever we could do to say F you to the church. And we didn't realize we were the church. That one stung. So a lot of it was a reaction against this sense that it's black and white, that the Bible's literal, that there's one answer, that the only story is told by white men, that, we reacted against this, right? And we said this is a regressive view. And so call that one pole. And then we kind of swung way the other way, right, to this ultra progressive view. Awesome, good, it honors a lot of needed stuff, social justice, da-da-da-da. And then we sort of emerge into kind of like the beginning and middle of founding this church, which is the acknowledgement that we've now attained a level of social awareness that we no longer believe that there's only one story. And so then we start going, oh my goodness, there's all these other stories. There's not just a straight white man power story. There's a story about women. There's a story about minorities. And there's a story about the queer community. And there's a story about the impoverished community. And there's all these other stories. And in this phase of awareness, we rightly start to acknowledge the value and the dignity and the humanity and the worth of every person and every single story. And in this phase of the church and of what we were trying to do, that was the mission, was to create a safe place to have conversations. And really it was reactionary against a church that was not a safe place to have conversations, the kind of conversations we wanted to have. So we started a church with the mission of creating safe space to have conversation, and we did it, and it worked. And in 2016, it was amazing, right? We had the budget, and we had some staff, and we were curating this conversation, and then things change, as things always do. And part of what's happened in the last several years is that we've realized that curating this conversation is no longer enough. And I'll tell you why. How many of you currently belong to and pay a monthly membership or subscription to Occupy Wall Street? Nobody. Does anybody know why that is? It doesn't exist anymore. Why doesn't it exist? Why doesn't Occupy Wall Street exist? Okay, so people didn't hang in long enough. Jay prayed that they would keep it up. You know, Jay, that's a similar story to I think the way a lot of people feel about Collective. I think we're all praying and we're all hoping people will keep it up long enough. What happened with Occupy Wall Street and what threatens Collective's future is getting so enamored with the conversation that you lack any conviction. Occupy Wall Street floundered because no one ever took any leadership. Everybody was so afraid of having anything like a conviction because having a conviction is offensive. You might get canceled if you hold an opinion. And we might, right? We've got this worldwide broadcast. Maybe they'll kick us off YouTube, who knows? No one did anything, right? Everyone kept getting together and going, this conversation is so valuable, and it was. Everyone's valuable, everybody's voice matters, all these stories matter. Let's just keep getting together and having a conversation. But what happens after a while? Like, conversation's good. Conversation's really good. But the world's going to shit, guys. And us having an edifying conversation isn't fixing it. It's not. At some point, our conversation has to yield some things that we believe in enough that we stand on them. That we walk in the world with some backbone around them, like people deserve affordable housing. Like the queer community deserves to be fully included in the life of the church, period. There's not going to be a conversation about it. Like taking any kind of high or literalist view of the Bible can be offensive to the underside of every community. We have to have difficult but open conversations like this in order to move out of this just never-ending, spinning our wheels conversation. And it's a scary time to have conviction, right? We're in a time in a culture where to hold anything like an opinion is seen by somebody as a form of violence, right? To say that one thing is better than another thing. That's tough. I get it, this is sort of a dicey place to be. And frankly, I don't think we would all still be here doing this if we didn't think that there were some things about this way of being a faith community together that are just better than a lot of other ways of being a faith community together. Healthier theology, healthy practice, a little bit more self-awareness. So if it's not this bipolarity, right? Extreme regression, extreme progressive, or this sort of conversation soup where nothing ever goes anywhere but everybody's valuable. The future of this community, and I think part of what we need to translate into these frequently asked questions are not easily answered from those two phases, from the black and white or from the conversation. But that is to somehow communicate to people with clarity and with love our humble practice. Our humble practice. That's what we're inviting them into, right? We don't want to get in a debate about our belief statements because we have so many different beliefs. But to join us in this humble practice, words like conviction. And we do have conviction. We think it's important enough every single week that we don't do intercessory prayer where I talk to God on your behalf. Instead, we sit in silence and we open ourselves to what is. We do have some convictions. We believe strongly enough in things that it shapes the way that we practice. And so part of what that means for our future is that we've got to get more comfortable with things like having conviction. Like telling people that we have a stand about something. Clarity, words like moral leadership, civic backbone, like showing up at the county council and saying that we actually do have strong opinions about how money gets spent in our county and about how that affects people who are spending more than half their income on rent, right? We don't want to offend anybody, but we do think that's better than the way things are. That an affordable housing trust fund is objectively better. And maybe, that's going to offend some people, but it's also our practice. This is our humble practice. This is how we think we can make a difference. And again, not from a perspective of rebellion, right? Not where we were 10, 15 years ago, like no for the sake of no, but from clarity, from a sense of clarity. We're now 15 years in. We know the few things that we're here to do now. Let's get about it. Let's stop wasting time and energy elsewhere. So I want to open the conversation tonight just by asking you, and I don't think we won't even break up into the groups. I wonder what you think maybe those top 4 questions are. Like somebody who's looking for what we have here. And I understand that that's not even fair to ask that question because you've got, me, I've been here the whole time. John's been here 15 years. Kenny's been here 10 years. And then some of you you've never been here. You're in here in the room for the first time. So wherever you are in that story and in that journey, with your experience, what do you think those first 4 questions would be that people would ask? What are the top frequently asked questions that are going to come up with people who are looking for something like Collective? Thank you so much, Dan, for being ready to roll right out of the gate. Awesome. Okay, let's pause on that one. How do I connect and help my neighbor? For how many of you in the room, that question, maybe it's not articulated that way. Maybe you don't like the word neighbor because you grew up Baptist. I don't know what it is. You can word it however you want. For how many of you in the room does the longing that Dan just named connect with part of the longing connected with why you're here? Or like why you're involved in spirituality, community, faith, to know how to be a better neighbor, or to be of service to a neighbor? Is that kind of what you said? Okay. How do I connect to my neighbors? Okay, so that resonates with some of the people in the room. Anybody else? What's a question? Jay and then Bill. Fantastic. Man, I'm going to see if our web developer will put an endorsement from the LDS on our website. That'd be fantastic. That's great. Okay. So the most important question was, does your church teach the Bible? How many of you guys, regardless of how you feel about that, you think that's an FAQ for anybody looking for a church, or for like a lot of people looking for a church? Okay. Does it teach the Bible? Or like how does it feel about the Bible? What does it believe about the Bible? How much power does it know? Okay, go ahead, Bill. Ooh, okay. So like, this is a good one. So if and maybe we'll start to, I think over the course of this conversation this month, we'll start to break these out into different kind of segments. And so some of these are going to be about like our personal practice and our life experience. Bill asked the question, how do I practice in such a way to cultivate peace in my life, to experience peace? Sure, I think probably a lot of people are looking for that. So we might break that into a section with sort of my own experience. What about how this congregation practices affects my experience? How do I get that? Some of it is probably going to be like what I made fun of earlier, like what are the services like? People do want to know. They want to know what it's like. They want to know how cool you guys are, that you're so welcoming, authentic. Go ahead, Jess. Yes, okay. Is there childcare? Okay, so here, this is a great example. And this is an opportunity for us to sort of dive back into the larger perspective. Praise God, there is childcare. Let's just listen to that fantastic childcare that we have. It's a good childcare commercial, actually. The kid's screaming, and we're just going to hang out here because there's somebody on it. I totally got lost. Yeah, so the part of what we're doing, and so like, honestly, this is what I do for a living. Kenny got advanced training in writing and editing, our web developer. We could do this. Part of what we're trying to do is, in our reflection on Sunday nights, is to connect the question of, is there childcare, to what is that actually, what is it connected to? What longing is that connected to? And the answer is we don't know. But, Mary, maybe we do know. You're the only one with a kid in the room. What has the church been offering for thousands of years? Sanctuary. Rest. Yeah, shelter. Some of it, though, I think if we expand that and we acknowledge that for a mother, for a parent, for someone who's a full-time caregiver, that if what it says on the top of our website above the fold is unconditional belonging and transformative love, Mom doesn't have access to unconditional belonging if she's supervising her kid the entire time. And so part of what we have to do is acknowledge that there's somewhere deep in that question, is there childcare? There's a longing for community. There's a longing to take a breath. There's a longing to be seen, not just appreciated for my cute baby, but to be talked to as a mom, as a person. So all I'm trying to say is there are deeper longings under, what do you believe about the Bible, right? What kind of coffee do you guys, these are what are going to show up on search engines that are going to funnel people into the opportunity to experience what we have to offer. Some of what we're going to do is try and bend those questions to help people understand who we are. So a couple more. What other questions? So, so I was saying we've got sort of how it affects me, my own personal practice. What's it like to experience this community? Oh, I thought somebody had like a beat going in the back. It's the rattle. Lily's playing the rattle, and she is a percussionist after all. All right, I'm going to finish this. Before I forget it again. So my own personal practice, what Bill was asking about cultivating peace, and then I'll come to you in just a second. There's the more corporate thing, like what does it look like to go to church here? What are services like? What can I expect? There's obviously the theology piece, and I want to talk to you guys about what you think those FAQs are. We've already touched on some of them. And then what we're going to do to kind of wrap all that up, so we've got the things that I think we all have some input on what those questions are. And I think we have some really important input that I'm going to try to draw out of us in terms of how we answer that in 30 seconds, in like a little snippet. But the thing I think that's going to tie it together is that we're also going to get like the top 5 questions that are going to be asked by someone who's looking for a church no matter what. And so we're going to have to find what's a collective response to the question, what's a good progressive church in DeLand? Right? Because people ask that on Facebook all the time, and it usually just ends up being like a job board for all the different churches, and they're like, check this out. So if somebody sits down and Googles, what's a good progressive church in DeLand, what do we say in 30 seconds that's not going to just be bullshit, and that's going to actually communicate some of what is authentically so valuable about who we are, about what we do, about how we carry ourselves together? That was a super long rhetorical question. Does anyone else have any idea? Yeah, Bill.
We ask good questions and we hold your answer.
Yeah, so the practice is asking those questions and then holding ourselves open enough for both the people who come to the table and for the answers that they bring. Yeah, Kenny, what's up online?
That actually really connects to what John Schulteis said, which his question was, how are differing opinions handled? Is there really room for all?
Ooh, that's a good one. How would you guys answer that? John Schulteis bringing it in. So how do you guys answer that? Somebody wants to know, is there really room for differing opinions? Is it really welcoming to everybody? Is that right? More or less? Yeah. Is there really room for all? Yes, with respect. Okay. Yes, and with respect.
The first time I walked into this place, Heather was doing the gospel reading.
The first time you walked in, Heather was doing the gospel reading.
That was it for me. Within seconds, we sat down, I saw Heather.
Yeah.
We're here.
So in practice, you see that the community includes everyone, and so that's the evidence of what you're looking for. Yeah, Jess. Yeah. Yeah. So in Jess's mind, the story that resonates with her heart is like we had to leave the bigger church in order to fly our flag, to fly the pride flag, to be fully who we were. Yeah. Jay. Yeah, Jay was saying he shares that story as well, just because of the, kind of what we were just saying, that it's a season where we need to lead with conviction and let that kind of be, let that pull us out of this, kind of never-ending conversation and really build a platform for helping people and kind of expanding this congregation. But it's a powerful story, and I think it's some of what we will wrestle with moving forward is how we hold openness and generosity, and no one will ever be turned away, with conviction. Lisa and then Joy. Ooh, yeah. The bait and switch. Yeah. Yeah. We love everyone. Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. This is such an important, I don't know if I can do this. I wish I had it. Well, I really wish I had the invisible thing from the movie Minority Report. But without that, I wish I had a whiteboard so I could illustrate this. But this is such an important point you're making, Lisa. Because if you think about the evolution of these kinds of consciousness, that's part of what we're trying to say is that we're not trying to, in this sort of conversation soup, we're not trying to go from here and reach back in and say, back here you are on the wrong side of black and white, so we're going to go back here and change your mind. That's why I say humble practice up here is aware of where we came from. It's aware that there are people back here that have different perspectives from us, and we're not primarily engaging disagreement with these people. We're moving into humble practice. We're just saying we've had enough of this conversation that we know who we are. And that's, I think the bait and switch is very much, people feel incredibly betrayed when they think that they're in that sort of safe space of everyone's story is valid, everyone's humanized, and they're sort of invited into a church that feels like that, but it's really one of those black and white churches, where as soon as you get in, they go, no, it's not, your story really isn't valid unless you change, or you match up with this book that we can't really explain. Really, yeah, and so part of what we're trying to do in answering these questions is to name that we have conviction the other way, that we're not still in the conversation soup where we feel the obligation to say, you know what, we have a really valid, progressive perspective on the inclusion of queer people in the church. And you know what, the Southern Baptist Convention, for example, has a really regressive and bigoted perspective on queers in the church. But we're in this sort of conversation soup, and so what we're going to do is sort of rub elbows and agree and disagree, but really what we're going to say is everybody has a valid perspective. Part of where we're moving is into a into a season where we know enough who we are as a congregation that we don't feel the need to say that that perspective is healthy or valid anymore. And we can say with some clarity that only a fully inclusive and affirming view of the queer community in the church is really healthy, is really contributing life and dignity and wellness, and that perspectives less than that aren't. That they're less good, that they're less healthy, that they're less life-giving. It's okay for us to say that. And it will offend people. People will disagree with us. We're going to interpret the Bible differently with lots and lots of people, and that's okay. That's the Christian tradition. But we're moving into a period of time where being who we are, again, is not going to be, we're not going to have those experiences in conflict with people. That's just going to be our practice. That's the direction we're headed. Does that make sense? Fantastic. Any other questions? Well, yeah, let me. Sure, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Sure, absolutely. We all do. Sure. Sure. That's right. Yeah. Beautiful. Sure. That's right. That's right. We're fiercely agreeing. That's right. Yep, last Sunday to next Sunday. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I like you. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you. Jerry, what you got? Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Comedy was Friday night, Jerry. Okay. Yeah. 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 Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So Jerry's saying, part of what Jerry's saying, and I think this has echoed the last few things, and I think especially, what was your name again? I'm sorry. Kenneth? That part of what's happening in human consciousness, and I feel like I've been saying this for like 20 years, 25 years. I think initially when I did youth ministry just after college, I used the language of like, people have radar for the BS. And I think what you guys have all named is that we've all been invited or drawn into some form of community or a human relationship group where We thought it was something. We thought it was safe. We thought we could be ourselves. And then when we get in there, we find out that people are trying to change us, that people have an agenda, that there's a lot of talk about how open and affirming it is, but then you get in there and people actually do want to change you. So what you all have done is really preach the sermon beautifully. That's the longing. That's the feeling. Part of what we're saying is, as we look back out on the world, and we try to look through Google at the people who are looking for us, what we need to be aware of is that however we answer these questions we come up with, that's one of the longings that we need to address. We need to address that people are afraid that there isn't unconditional, and this is the first thing on our website, unconditional belonging. The world is full of people who are afraid that there isn't unconditional belonging. They're afraid that they're going to come in and someone's going to tell them you're not good enough. You're almost lovable, but you could be if. And part of what we're trying to say is, if nothing else, unconditional belonging, unconditional hospitality, no one will ever be turned away. How do we make the answer to should I go to a progressive, or where should I go to a progressive church in DeLand, answer that longing? That's some of the work that we're going to do in these next weeks. Let me say real quick before we come to the table, next week is Heather's last week of her summer internship. Heather is preaching next Sunday. Mary is going to be our guest musician, and so you do not want to miss that. Again, it's really good stuff that's happening, so you should invite some folks to come and see what we have going on. I want to come back to Lisa real quick. You had a question or thought? Sure. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe that's the simple response to what do you believe, and then instead of God, Jesus, Bible, community statement. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Joy, and then we're gonna. Then we're,
I just have to say this.
do it.
I agree with what Lisa just said.
Yeah.
The community statement is paramount. However, what I want to really say is collective moves away from the sin mentality.
Say more.
And
Collective moves away from the sin mentality.
mentality that we all grew up with that tells us we were bad and we have to get better.
Mhm.
And collective isn't that. Collective opens the door for us to discover how wonderfully we are made in the sight of God. And
Say
to
something.
discover our own talents and our own gifts, and we do that through practice. And that, to me, when you get that practice, even when we move away from here on Sunday, and we do that every week, we will discover the giftedness that we are, and then we can turn around and translate that into a better place to live for all of us.
Yep. Jim Kane talks about the way that when the church is working at its best, there are these internal callings that rise up. And it's the job of the church to come around those. And I just love that. When Joy preaches and the community says, yep, that's it. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. It's for Joy to preach. Heather. Yeah.
Just to kind of build on that, you know, going back to what, who was saying about when, it was Jessica was saying about when we were told to take down the flag.
Oh, yeah.
We were told to take down the flag of inclusion.
Yeah.
And how did we respond?
Hell no.
So, we didn't take down the flag. We put a white lesbian woman as a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
We put a black lesbian woman as a preacher.
Yeah.
We've got an openly transgender woman as a pastoral candidate. Ben's the only straight white preacher we've got.
And look, I'm open. I'm open. I just haven't been convinced, let me say.
So not only did we not take the flag, we hoisted that flag 10 times higher.
Yeah.
And here we are. And that's, we don't want you to come to Collective so we can make you into us. We already got us. We want you to come to Collective because we are better with you as part of us.
That's right.
And that's the difference.
You know, I was thinking, this is so funny. We should do this. Could be like a flip flop of one of the old tracks. But when Kenneth was sharing, the language that I heard was that, and I heard this when I was in high school, especially when I was in college ministry. It isn't our job to change people, And if queers want to come into the church and they find God and God wants to change them, that's fine. And I think Heather's one of the greatest examples of that, right? You came into Collective, and then the Spirit moved, and God changed you, right?
I came in for the music.
Yeah, you came for the music. And have changed tremendously since.
And who the funk? Right?
Yeah. in name and more. So, thank you guys. This has been a really good and fruitful time together. I hope that this, especially the conversation about connecting our longings, the things that we're trying to touch on in our time together, in our liturgies, in our community groups, with what people are looking for as they're looking for a community like ours, because we know we need more people to make this work, and we also know there are so many more people who need what it is that we have, and we have the ability to help. So we're going to come to this table and receive the Eucharist. This is a symbol. We come each week, and we symbolize in our tradition the materiality of our faith. The materiality of our faith and the humanity of God. A reminder that we ourselves are the body of Christ. We as Christ, body to be given, and blood to be shed. The table of this unconditional belonging. Unconditional belonging. Belonging without condition. Religious preference, sexuality, gender identity, race, creed. Belonging without condition. Ooh, I haven't done this in a while. This is kind of fun. I want you guys to picture something. No, never mind, we're not going to do that. Unconditional belonging. Transformative love. And part of what Lisa said is so true. We also acknowledge that we don't do it perfectly. That's part of what's real about being here too, is that people come and sometimes they get conditional belonging because we're not at our best. And they get less than transformative love because we're also people. And that as much as we believe in this vision, we also went through the pandemic. We also have mental health issues. But it's real. It's an invitation to be part of that real community. And even in our inability to be unconditional, we find unconditional belonging. And being able to admit that we can't do it, but that we keep pursuing it. And no one will ever be turned away. When you're ready, feel free to come receive the bread, dip it in the cup. Bread for the journey, nourishment for the soul.
into the dark. No blinding light tunnels to gates of white. Zion's clasped so tight, waiting for end of a spark. If heaven and hell aside, they both are satisfied. Illuminate the notes on their vacancy signs. There's no one beside you when your soul embarks, and I'll follow you into the dark. Catholic school, as vicious as Roman rule. I got my knuckles bruised by a lady in black. She held my tongue as she told me, son, fear is the heart of love. So I never went back. Heaven and hell aside, that they both are satisfied. Illuminate the nose when their vacancy sign. There's no one beside you when your soul embarks, and I'll follow you into the dark. You and me, we've seen everything to see, from Bangkok to Calgary. In the soles of your shoes, we're all worn down. The time for sleep is now. There's nothing to cry about. So hold each other soon in the blackest of rooms. Heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied. Illuminate the nose on the vacancy sign. There's no one beside you when your soul embarks. I'll follow you into the dark. I'll follow you into the dark.
The dark.
Thanks so much for joining us in person and online. Thank you again for making financial support a part of your practice at collectivegives.com and making your plan to stay connected at wearecollectivechurch.com. Update your preferences so you can customize your engagement. For benediction this evening, we've got a familiar poem by a familiar poet, Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
And if you guys can't interpret mumbles, Bill said that the symbol for wild geese in Celtic is a symbol of God. Did I say that right? I'm certain I didn't in terms of the parts of speech, but that's okay. There's something about a symbol and a goose and God, the wild goose. Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention as we head into this week. First to our foreheads for clarity of thought, to our lips for clarity of speech, and to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and do, Love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. We would love you all to bus your mugs back to the bar. We'll clean them up from there. If you'd wipe your tables down and pick up, and then if we could strike the room for yoga, that would be fantastic. Freddie and I are more than willing to play some moving furniture music for you. So